This is the Chameleon Tactical Transmitter, or CTT. It took more than 2 years to develop. After design, prototype, testing, redesign, prototypes, testing, this thing was all over the world, getting trialed and tested by dog trainers who were putting it to the max of its use. Finally, it went out to police, again all over the world, and this final iteration went to one of the most elite military units on the planet for final field testing before it hit the market for sale in January 2018. But what is this thing? Why is it any different from any other transmitter? Well, I'm glad you asked. The first thing you're going to notice about the CTT is that while it turns on via this button and the modes can change via this button, there's no buttons on here to actually communicate with the dog. And that's because all communication is done via the finger kick as it pairs to the CTT and communicates off to the collar in that way. The idea of this is because this is a tactical piece of equipment that your police, military, dog handler, whatever, can attach this to themselves via this belt clip any way they like. This can go on your body armor, this can go on your duty belt, this can even go strapped to your wrist, no problem. You don't need to have access to the CTT in order to stim your dog. You do that all via finger kick. And you don't have to worry about anyone who might be able to stim your dog if they grab a hold of this. So if you find yourself in a grappling situation, or even if you just lean against a wall, there's no chance of you accidentally stimming your dog via this collar. You'll see that it has a tiny little antenna. That's to achieve maximum range. This thing is used by operators who need extreme range, more than 1 kilometre. Why? Well, because sometimes they may need to penetrate thick vegetation through compound walls. So even though their dog may not be 1 kilometre away, they need that extreme range to be sure they can do it. The last thing you notice is this very solid turning dial that changes your levels. So the CTT is much like the PT3000 in a different case. So you can imagine that this is actually carrying 2 ID codes, one on this side, so you can think of this as 1A and 1B, and the other on the other side, so think of this as 2A and 2B. So you have those 4 functions, and you can pair up to 4 finger kicks, and using them, you can label them accordingly. You can stim from back to 1A, 2A, and have up to 4 different programmable functions. The end users needing this, needed those 4 functions because a lot of the time they're using a vibrate and a tone as a recall and a down. They need a working level stim as well as a correction level stim. So those 4 functions all paired to one collar give them those 4 possibilities. Now anyone that's spent even 5 minutes in the army is going to be able to tell you that if something can go wrong, it will. So while I've got my CTT attached to my duty belt and it's functioning fine, I'm operating using nothing but finger kicks, the day will come where my finger kick runs out of battery on an operation, or I lose it, or something will happen. Well, never fear. You can still operate your collar via the CTT using a special pairing mode we can set it to that will allow this center button to operate 1A on a continuous mode only. So we call that the SOS function, which really is a limp home capability. You're not caught with your pants down, you can still stim your dog, you can still change levels, but you can only perform 1A on a continuous function. As soon as you get back to base, get new finger kicks, find your old ones, whatever it is, you can repair them, and away you go again. On top of all that, this CTT charges via induction, it's waterproof to 1 metre, and it's as solid as a rock. So that's the Chameleon Tactical Transmitter, a product specifically designed and manufactured to meet the needs of police and military dog handlers from all over the world. Now when it came on market, of course civilian dog trainers and sports dog competitors wanted to know, hey, is this something we can use? And of course it is, but in typical Bart and Michael Bellin style, they said, for you, we can make it better. Enter the CTT Sport. Now the first thing you're going to notice about this little guy is that he has no external antenna. And what that does is reduce the range to around 400 meters according to the instructions. But what does that look like in real life? What can this thing actually do? Let's take a look. Now the big difference of the CTT and the CTT Sport is that the CTT Sport is a one dog system. So it can only be paired to one collar, and you keep the functionality of your 1A over here, your 1B here, and this button over here can be thought of as your 1C. That 1C remains always as a delete function. So if you pair a finger kick to that function, and when the collar is turned on and you activate it, you will drop all the electricity out of your collar, which is fantastic for anyone that moves through or trains in an area where e-collars are illegal. You can immediately make your device legal and comply with local laws at the push of a button. So let's have a look at that in practice. So here's my collar. You can see that on my 1A function, we'll cycle to that. I have my stimulation, which you'll see via this light. Stimulation works. My 1B is set to tone. And if I get my 1C, you'll see that by the push of a button, I drop all the electricity from my collar. My 1A now performs no task, no stimulation. However, my 1B still brings the audible tone. To bring that functionality of electricity back in, we have to get online, type in our own personal password, and we can reinstate the collar to function totally normally. So how do you know which one's right for you? CTT or the CTT Sport? Well, if you need extreme long range of more than 4 functions across up to 2 dogs, CTT is a collar for you. But if you just need to control one dog with 2 functions and the ability to automatically and instantly delete the electricity from your collar, CTT Sport's the way to go.